Teachers of Reddit, what's the saddest thing you've heard a student say? A second grader told me that he was feeling weird and tired that day because he didn't sleep much the night before because people were shooting each other on his street and his dad went out to see what was happening and didn't come back until morning. He was so worried he hadn't slept at all. Another student told me he couldn't take his ADHD medicine because his mommy sold it for food. Answer: I keep seeing all of these stories about food. My school does a little thing that isn't much, but definitely helps. Every Friday, kids with a low income is sent home with a sack of food. Next story. I was only sort of a teacher for 1 year. I worked at one of the national laboratories in the Bay Area, and as outreach, we gave 2 science lessons each to all the schools in Oakland and Berkeley. On lesson 2 in one of the Oakland schools, from a 10-year-old girl who was clearly having trouble paying attention. Sorry I wasn't here last time. My dad got shot. Next story. I was assisting another class of first graders, and when they were dismissed, one of the boys was slightly panicked and sticking to the wall. When I talked to him to figure out why, he informed me that his older brother had come to pick him up and that he was terrified. I called over the other teacher, and we found out that his brother was physically abusive when they were alone together. Of course, in light of this information, we couldn't allow him to leave with his brother, so we called the mother and waited until she could pick him up. I informed the mother of what her son had told us, and that was it. But I'll never forget how scared that little boy was. Next story. When I taught elementary school, I had a kindergarten kid that was always at the school. He'd show up super early and leave super late. He was in a before and after school program called Mel C. They give the kids whose parents work breakfast and dinner. It was right before April break, and I can't remember why, but I mentioned we were going to be off of school for a week. He started crying and said, "But miss, how am I going to eat if I'm not here?" I almost cried with him. His parents work all day long. Reported it to the admin, but I don't think anything came of it. He might have stayed with other family for the week. He seemed fine when we came back. Next story. My sister had a kid in kindergarten have a big breakdown, seeing all the food getting thrown away after lunch on the first day. He had a bunch of siblings at home, and they were all hungry. It's the first time my sister cried at work. CPS was called, and stuff happened. I'm talking about the enormous quantity of food thrown away by companies because the foods weren't sold or didn't look normal, while those foods were actually completely fine to eat. It really makes me angry. Next story. I'm a fudge idiot. The young man had just received his scores on his ACT. They weren't good, and he felt his dream of being a police officer were over. The kid is 17, just go his life rammed by a stupid jerk test. It makes my blood boil how much stock we put into the darn test. He's a joy to have in class, spent all of his lunches with me, going over content he didn't understand, is well-liked, works 40 hours a week, is a productive member of society, and is just an overall good kid. And a darn test says he's not good enough. Answer: I can relate. Straight A's through high school. I took the fudge test 3 times. First 2 times my parents enrolled me to those ACT classes. I got a score of 20. This switched me to a private tutor. Again, I study my jerk off. If I wasn't working on schoolwork, it was something with the ACT. My last score was 21. I was still able to get into a college, but I am pretty sure it took me out of the running of the schools I really wanted to go to. I am looking into going into grad school and purposely looking for schools that don't need a GRE score to get in. Next story. I taught my high school students in China to write haiku, 575 syllables. I came across this one from an extremely pleasant and soft-spoken kid while going through what they handed in. Delete my dad, told to me Harry. Now delete mom's number. Shut up, I will not. Harry, Class 3A. Edit. Thank you, extremely intelligent humans, for pointing out the second line is 8 syllables. I am fully aware. This is what he wrote and came from his here and mind, and that's what makes it special. Many of the haiku I got back that were full of mistakes were the most powerful, clever, hilarious. Also, you'd be surprised how hard it is to learn how to break down syllables, coming from Chinese especially. It might help to know that each character in Chinese essentially boils down to 1 syllable when pronounced, but the way kids learn at a young age to form the sounds breaks them down into either 2 or 3 parts that string together in different ways. 2. In Chinese poetry, since each character is 1 sound and takes up an equal amount of space and rhythm, just the concept of words of different lengths having all sorts of variety in number of syllables throws them off from the start. 3. Harry had literally learned what a syllable was like 3 days before he wrote this. Next story. As a community college peer tutor, I've heard too many kids and adults tell me about their depression, anxiety, addiction, and bullying. For some reason, one kid stuck with me. He told me about his autism and his love for writing movie scripts. He said, "I know they're not very good, so my dad always reads them and helps edit them." It was sad hearing him beat himself up about something he loved, but nice to hear that his dad always takes the time to go through long scripts with him often. Next story. I was a secondary education major for most of college and worked at a bunch of schools nearby. At one middle school, there was a kid we'll call Jeremy, about 12 years old, black, family was pretty broke. Smart kid, worked pretty hard and took good notes. He was never involved in any of the problems around the school and never got in trouble for anything more than missing an assignment or two. Good dude. We were talking about their plans for the future, and Jeremy mentioned he probably wouldn't be able to go to college, but that was okay. He'd try to find a job before leaving high school. And when I go to jail, I hope it'll only be for a few years so I can get back to work. Not if, when. With everything he'd seen in the world up to that point, it wasn't really a question for him. Next story. I'm sorry, I didn't take my meds today because Mom sold them again. And is it okay if I stay in your room for lunch? We don't have any food in the house. I bought that kid bread, peanut butter, jelly, and some snacks, and he made lunches and dinners for himself and his brother. I cried every night during that school year. Edit to add, thank you for unexpected gold. Next story. I have two from the same open university in an economically depressed area. One, with tears. Can I please turn in my paper next week instead of next class because my brother just got convicted and they are asking for the passing penalty? Poor kid. That's a hell of a lot to handle at 18. Two, this was an essay on the topic of why are you here? The student, an older woman in a freshman comp class, wrote that she'd had her kids at a young age, and now that they were grown, she wanted to show them that she could still make something of herself. And even though her husband told her that he would leave her if she went to college, she came anyway. Thank God it was a diagnostic essay, because how the hell would you grade that? I just wanted to cheer and hug her. Next story. Not me, but wife. A couple years ago, a grade 3 kid whose birthday was coming up was saying how he didn't deserve a birthday, that he was a speck of dirt, that he was bad. It took a while, but my wife was able to figure out that when he was in grade 1 and at his birthday celebrations, his dad stabbed his mom. He had internalized this into somehow being his fault because it happened on his birthday. It was his fault that his dad was in jail and that his mom was so severely injured that she could no longer work. It was his fault that they had to move into a much smaller place. Really tough to hear. Kids should not have to deal with this shoot. Next story. For context, I teach English as a second language in HK for secondary students at a pretty weak school. At this point, I'd only been teaching for maybe 5 weeks. I was teaching the form ones, 12 years old, speaking lessons, and one boy had a really good attitude to learning English, and so I thought he would make a great addition to the English ambassador team to help me out around school. When I approached him after class and asked if he wanted to join, the conversation went like this. Me, hey, name, would you like to be an English ambassador? Student, but my English not very good. Sick. Me, it seems pretty great to me, and your attitude in class is excellent, and that's what's important. Student, but there are much sick students better than me. Me, I think you're more than good enough 200 added B, at which point the boy starts crying, and obviously I'm quite shocked and am just like, what's up? You okay? To which he just says while sniffling from tears, no one's ever said I'm good enough. They all told me my English was rubbish. That was heartbreaking for me to hear. He explained afterwards not only had his friends told him he was rubbish, but his teachers too. X200B, edit typo. Next story. Heard just last week from behavioral emotional support student, IA, me, wow, that's a pretty good score. Great job. Student, yeah, but I got % wrong. Mom's not going to be happy about that. IA, but this is honestly a good score for you. It's over half. Student, I know. But whenever I tell her I got like 20 out of 30, my mom always says, but you still got 10 wrong. And I'm like screaming in my head, why can't you be happy for me for finally getting a good grade? IA, heartbreaking. Well, if she won't say it, I will. This is an awesome score for you. I mean, this is a brand new concept the teacher just introduced today, and you rocked out this score after only hearing it once? You did rockin' awesome. The little smile they gave at that, just eliminate me. Next story. This happened to me, and I know it'd eliminate my teacher because he was one of my former coaches, and he came to my house to apologize for it. My dad died my senior year of high school, and I missed a few weeks due to the passing. Doing anything was a task, let alone school, but apparently he didn't get the notification. When I came back to class, he said, hey, Krampus, where have you been? Who died? Kind of half-heartedly, and apparently I just had this emotionless look on my face and said, my dad, and left the class. He chased me down the hall and talked to me for a while, apologized over and over again, and I accepted because I knew he meant no harm at all by the ill-will joke. He was nearly in tears because he coached me for a couple of years and knew my family too. He came to my house that weekend and offered to take me out and try to have some fun with his family, which his brother was my age too. I miss that teacher. He was and still is a great man with an ill-advised dark joke. Next story. I've been an ESL teacher online for Japanese people of all ages for around 6, 7 years or so. I had a favorite student, sweet, nice older gentleman, loves to talk about his favorite anime shows with me to practice his English, and likes to ask about what I drew during the week. I'm an illustrator. One day he contacted me out of class hours, which was against the company's rules, and left me a message with the context of, "Hello, dear teacher. I always look forward to our classes, and I have been very happy whenever we talk. I know you've become more popular, and other students have requested for your classes, so we cannot talk as often as we used to. I know I am only one of the many people you teach English to, but you have been so kind to me during our classes, and I feel like we have become friends. I am afraid to say that I will no longer be taking your classes anymore, as I am contemplating tragic end. I've been so depressed lately, and I no longer know what to do." Against company protocol, I contacted him as soon as I saw the message and begged him to tell me his mailing address and told him to wait until my letter comes. I wrote him a very long letter of why he shouldn't do it, and also sent a lot of my art prints and stickers to hopefully cheer him up. He responded after some weeks and said that it truly helped him clear his mind. We are still friends to this day, and he sends me pictures of his pet rabbits from time to time. Edit. Thank you for the nice messages. I'm a bit shy to respond to some of them because English isn't my first language, and I do not know as much slang as I wish I did. But his favorite anime, and now mine as well, is Natsume Yujincho, Natsume's Book of Friends. It's very heartwarming and wholesome. Edit 2. Thank you so much to the nice people who gave me a gold. This wasn't necessary, but so kind. I am in tears. I didn't expect so many people to read it, but I'm glad it has made a nice little impact in your hearts. Gentleman-san did send me back something for the letter and art prints. It was a life-size Nyanko Sensei plushie that helps me sleep better at night. He also has a hamster named Nyanko Sensei, and he eats a lot. Edit 3. Silvers, thank you so much, really, and for all the nice comments. I'm so sorry for not replying to all of them, but they're all so uplifting. I hope you take the time today to check on a friend. Answer, hello, dear teacher. I always look forward to our classes, and I have been very happy whenever we talk. I know you've become more popular, and other students have requested for your classes, so we cannot talk as often as we used to. I know I am only one of the many people you teach English to, but you have been so kind to me during our classes, and I feel like we have become friends. I'm afraid to say that I will no longer be taking your classes anymore, as I am contemplating tragic end. I've been so depressed lately, and I no longer know what to do. Formatted for readability. Next story. The first time a student had ever told me they were being abused by their mom, she asked to talk to me after class for advice, and I didn't think anything of it. She told me she had a track meet that day and wanted to know what she should do about concealing the bruises on her legs because she had to wear shorts. And I said, well, if you got them from practice, then people will understand. And that's when she told me her mom got tipsy and beat her and her twin sister. I know she was trying to find a way to tell anyone she was being abused, and she picked me. The conversation afterward was very hard because she didn't want me to tell anyone, and A, I am legally mandated to do so, and B, I felt so horrible, and someone needed to help these girls. She begged me not to tell anyone, got on her hands and knees, and then screamed at me in anger. When I told her how sorry I was and that I had to, I cried for like 3 hours after that. X200B, edit, spelling afterwards. Answer, I've had to do this many times, twice this school year. Both times the kids begged me not to tell anyone. I so badly want to keep their trust, knowing that they may never open up to someone again, but it's my job to report it. It seems both cases worked out this time. One was a stepfather who was planning on moving even before the case was opened, and the other was an older brother who was, I think, just roughhousing with his sister too much. At least I hope that's all it was. Next story. Don't know if this counts as I'm the one that said it, but I had a pretty tough time at school. I had almost no friends and buried myself in my studies. My tutor was this tiny, angry Welshman called Mr. Evans, who I didn't think even noticed I existed, as I just kept my head down and had no interest in either of his subjects. Flash forward 5 years, and I'm working a part-time retail job whilst paying to learn accountancy at a local college. One random Sunday who walks in, but Mr. Evans, he notices me, looks surprised, and comes over to talk. We shoot the shoot for 5 minutes or so, as he basically asks me how I'm doing, what I've done since sixth form, etc. Before he goes, I tell him I'm surprised he remembers me after all this time, considering all the kids that must have come and gone since then. He looks me in the eye and says, you always remember the ones you worry about. You once spent 10 minutes in my lessons arguing with me about what the point of anything was in the politest way possible. It's great to see how well you're doing now. Next story. My mom is a kindergarten teacher, and this one always stuck with me. There was a girl in her class that suspected to be living in a motel room with her parents, always came in with dirty clothes, obviously tired, etc. Unfortunately, because of all of the red tape that teachers have to go through, all they could really do was keep an eye on her until they had something they could report to CPS. One day, my mom's talking to her one-on-one, as she often did, to try to get her to open up. The girl has obviously been instructed on what to say, not say by her parents as to not alert anyone to what was going on. But my mom asked her if she got enough sleep at home, since she always looked tired. She responded, "Oh yes, it's all I really do at home." My mom prods her, asking why she needs to sleep so much, thinking maybe she had some kind of medical disorder. The girl responded, "When I get real hungry, my tummy hurts. When I go to sleep, it doesn't hurt anymore." God, I can't even tell that story without losing it. Luckily, this was enough to get CPS involved finally, and she was moved into foster care. My mom said it was amazing to see her become a person finally. Next story. I had a kid with a rare brain disorder where, according to his doctor, one half of his brain was 2 years behind and one was 2 years ahead of schedule or something like that. Couldn't find any info about it online. This resulted in unusually strong academic ability, but very poor emotional regulation. One day on the playground, the little guy was doing some homework. I looked at him and said something to the effect of, "Go be a kid." He said, "Well, I don't have time to be a kid." A little background. His mother makes him spend a lot of time at home doing brain trains, little cognitive exercises to support the hemisphere of his brain that is underdeveloped. These are time-consuming and challenging. So what he said hit me hard, don't even know why. Kid is mature, but the genetic lottery stripped him of his youth. Edit. Second grade. Answer. I have autism and feel similarly that a part of me is way ahead, while the other part is way behind. My mental and social developments have especially been slow. I would like to mention that I had absolutely zero problems with this when I was young. What fudged me up eventually was other people telling me I needed to be a regular kid teenager. That's when I started to doubt my worth and way of being, and still struggle with it to this day because I always feel like I need to be how others want me to be. I keep comparing myself to others because I kept being told I had to be like others. I wish people had just let me be. Next story. It's not hard, I'm just really tired. Said to me by a little girl in tears as she refuses to do the work I gave her. I work at an international preschool in Japan, and it's insane what some of these kids do before they're even in elementary school. This girl went to our school 9 to 2:30 every day, and then had math school 2 times a week, singing class, puzzle class, yes, that's a real thing here, music lessons, piano I think, and gymnastics. She was in preschool, mind you. Answer. Some of my younger Japanese students in middle school also attend cram school before regular classes start, so they wake up 4 a.m. in the morning, get on the train, attend cram school for an hour and a half, and take a short nap before walking to school. These children are exhausted. Some of them accidentally fall asleep during classes with me, and I just let them sleep and input notes for our class that hopefully my company doesn't find out. Like, she did very well today, wonderful student, to make sure the other tutors will still conduct their class requests. Next story. Not me, but a friend of mine is an elementary school teacher, and she came to school extremely hungover one time. It was only once, and I'm sure there were reasons. She's a good, motivated, and responsible teacher. One of the children smiled and hugged her, saying, "Mrs. King, you smell like my dad." Next story. I was an astronomy teacher in my country, one of South America, and the kid was in 4th grade. We were doing a model of the Earth in Play D2H, and at the end, we needed to cut it to see the layers. I was using a cutter, and I was the only one that could do it because of security reasons. One girl found it next to a boy. She told me, "I saw it falling from his pants." I took the kid outside and he started to cry. I didn't know what's going on. So the conversation was this. Me, "Tell me the truth. You're not in trouble. I just want to know why you did it." He, "I just needed the cutter to defend myself and my family. But don't tell anyone. I don't want to be in trouble. Please, don't say anything." Me, "Why? Are you in danger? Something is bad at your home?" Hewin, "My stepfather hits me every time I have a bad note from the school and hits my mom all the time. I need to defend them." Me, "It's okay. Everything will be okay." I just hug him. I tried to not cry and ask for help in the school through teachers and psychologists. I still think about him, and that was 2 years ago. So many stories in that way, so many kids, and sometimes you feel hopeless. Next story. While working in a youth shelter as a counselor, had one of my teens tell me that she was one of 5, 6 kids her mom had, but all of the other kids lived with mom. My mom just can't afford all of us right now, so basically this girl lost the lottery and became the one in shelter's foster system. But she'll come back for me when she's back on track. Now this was a 14, 15-year-old, but had some cognitive delays and was more like a 8-year-old mentally, socially. She was a sweet kid. It was so sad on so many levels. Next story. I used to teach in an alternative high school, a lot of kids from rough areas, many on probation, etc. One day I had students writing a journal prompt about where they thought they'd be in 5 years. One of them told me in all seriousness that he assumed he'd be dead in 5 years. He was 15 and he had recently been inside his house when his uncle and brother were shot and eliminated on the front porch. He honestly couldn't see any other future for himself outside of their footsteps. X200B, I left that school shortly after, but I think about that kid all the time. Next story. I have a very angry student who to this day picks fights with every student whom so much as looks at him. He perpetuates arguments, picks physical altercation, lashes out, and has repeatedly called me a meanie for reprimanding him. One day, I finally got him to calm down after one of these outbursts. I pleaded with him, trying to better understand why he was like this. He refused to answer me, and so I figured it was time to call his mother in for a parent conference. In the meeting, his mother confessed to us that his father died last summer of a heroin overdose. The student, sitting right there next to his mom with tears in his eyes, looked at me and said, "I found his body." It broke my heart. To this day, I feel his pain when he lashes out, and I try my hardest to earn his trust. I hope that one day he'll be okay. Next story. I did a FBA, functional behavior assessment, on a second grader with emotional impairment. When I asked him the question, "Who at school likes me?" he couldn't answer and wouldn't stop staring at the floor. When I told him that I liked him, he started crying. Edit. Holy cow, this blew up. Answer. While I wasn't in FBA when I was in elementary and 4th grade, up to that point, I was heavily bullied, even by the teachers and staff, and I felt absolutely disliked by everyone. And it kind of built up over time to that point. And I just started crying in class one day, and my new teacher asked if I could talk after class, and the same convo went down there. You'll never forget how nice she was. Next story. Not a teacher, but overheard a girl and a teacher talking. We all went to a more special high school, smaller classes, and more flexible schedules and such. He was trying to give her a pep talk about all the things she could do since she seemed depressed that day and didn't feel like doing schoolwork. He was saying both short-term and long-term stuff, like getting herself a treat after school to cheer herself up, listening to favorite music, telling her she was smart enough to do anything she wanted. What broke my heart was when, in response to the careers and future plans, she said, "My family said girls can't do that stuff." She was from a fairly middle-class family. White, owned a Dalian SUV, and the parents were college educated, so it was a huge shocker to hear her say that. Talking to her later, it turned out that she was only expected to go to college to find a boyfriend husband, so it didn't matter what she wanted to do. X200B. After that, the teachers and other students who also overheard started to look out for her more and helping her when she needed it. Last I saw, on her Facebook at least, she seems to be doing very well, so I'm happy she's doing better. X200B still makes me feel sad that some people still think that being born a certain gender, boy or girl, stops them from doing certain things. Answer. My fiance's parents did a similar thing to her, except they decided she couldn't even go to college. She's a fantastic person, but had such a messed up childhood that I have to take care of most things for her because she was never properly prepared and exposed to the real world. She's a stay-at-home mom with our 9-month-old right now, but she talks about maybe going back to college every now and then. I encourage her every time and told her I will support her through the entire thing, but it's up to her to take that step. She gets really upset sometimes because she feels like her parents crushed her potential, and it's hard to make her see that her potential is still there, and it's never too late to go out and use it. She's only 30. Next story. I have a few stories. The school I used to teach in hires a Muppet company every year to teach about intimacy abuse. What's a private part? No one should be allowed to touch it beside you. How to report it. So it was my first year teaching. We got the kids to the auditorium for the show. After the show, the host asks the students to stay if things from the show has happened to them. I was ready to get up and bring my entire class back to the classroom, only to realize 4 of my students remained seated. I turned to a fellow teacher, and she basically told me, "Yep, it happens." My heart dropped. My kids were 3rd graders. Another one was a struggling student, Maggie, below grade level reading and math levels. I did a small group with her, another struggling student, and another teacher. We started talking about our weekend plans and people in our families. After the three of us shared, Maggie said she lives with her brother and dad, and the other student asked, "What about your mom?" Maggie replied that her mom worked a lot and she doesn't see her that often. My fellow teacher asked, "Oh, so like last week?" "No, it wasn't." Maggie said it under her breath last year on my dad's birthday. We were in the beginning of the school year, like October. We also did mood meter, and when someone puts their name on blue or red emotions, we would do a big circle share. One day, multiple students felt depressed and sad. So we sat and shared, only to find out that one kid who are far below his grade level lived with his aunt's family because his dad left the family and his mom was in prison. Imagine hearing an 8-year-old tell you that my mom, she is in prison and I miss her. Other kids were being so supportive and I got choked up. Got parents who were in denial about their kids' disabilities, which prevented them from receiving reasonable accommodations. Got a girl whose father took down the entire family and she was the only survivor. The list goes on and on. Answer: I was ready to get up and bring my entire class back to the classroom, only to realize 4 of my students remained seated. I turned to a fellow teacher and she basically told me, "Yup, it happens." My heart dropped. My kids were 3rd graders. And those are the students with the courage to stay, knowing that other people in their class will know they stayed. There are undoubtedly more who were too ashamed to stay. Next story. Obligatory, not a teacher. When I was 17, 18, I kind of made friends with a 12-year-old at my school. He was different, and lots of people used to laugh at him for that and not want to talk to him or let him sit near them, etc. I wanted to be his friend because he seemed nice and friendly, and I wanted for him to make sure he knew someone was looking out for him despite my friends, 15 and 18, also making fun of him and finding him weird and sometimes annoying. I did tell my friends off many times for that, especially the 18-year-old, because he was so much older and should have known better. One day when my friends weren't on the bus, the 12-year-old came and sat near me, and we chatted about school and stuff. The next day, because I knew his mom worked at the school, I found her and told her what happened, and she told me that her son has Asperger's and that it can be quite difficult for him, and she thanked me for telling her and looking out for him. I kind of assumed he had ASD, but I didn't ask him because it didn't really matter. I've finished school now, and I do worry about him sometimes. School is rough, especially for people with ASD. Next story. This was about 2 or 3 years back. Not a teacher, but a student who sat next to the sad kid who told the teacher after class that he was being bullied by the jocks who sit near us, and he wanted his seat to be moved across the room away from them. She told him that it wasn't her problem that he was having issues with students outside of school and couldn't change his seat because it would mess up the whole classroom attendance order. As someone who was severely bullied for nearly 7 years, I know just how shoot that kid feels. So I let him sit in my spot for the rest of the year because it was just slightly further away from the bullies. And best of all, the teacher never realized, so that whole attendance order shoot was completely false. She just didn't care enough to do anything about him. What a sad place this is. Next story. It depends on how you look at it, but when I was in elementary school, the teachers were telling us whether or not we passed the STARE test. When my friend got her score, she started to cry. We asked what was wrong, and she told us that she was happy that she had passed, so now she can see her father, whom she hadn't seen in 5 years. We were all about 10, which means she hadn't seen him since she was 5. They didn't seem too rich, so I suppose they had to limit the times they traveled anywhere, and thinking back, he may have been deported. That day, I learned to appreciate that I'm lucky enough to have both my parents under my roof. Next story. I once had an 8th grade boy at school for kids identified as gifted and/or superior, cognitive, say that he was dumb because all African Americans aren't smart. I was a student teacher at the time, but I had a really good discussion with him about the way our system discriminates against African American people. My mentor teacher pumped him up, reminding him that he was with us because he was intelligent too. It broke my heart a bit. Next story. I had this one student, 5th grade, hardworking, smart, funny, and always very helpful. Her B-Day was coming up, and she seemed pretty excited about it. I heard her talking with another student about B-Days and B-Day parties. She mentioned how she never had a party. I slowly died inside. She continued and said that everyone, she has 8 siblings, would sing her happy day at home. Then the rest of the day was just helping around the house and whatnot. But her most favorite part about having a day was that she got to sleep on the only other bed they all shared, without having to fight for it. I was in shambles at this point. She went on and said how she really thinks her mom will show up with cupcakes and stuff for her classmates. Another teacher and I got together and decided to throw her a mini class day party. We even got her a new dress and shoes for it. The day comes and we wait for the mom, just in case she did show up. She doesn't. So I come with pizza cupcakes, drinks, candy bags, gifts from kids and other teachers, the works. Her precious little face, guys. So worth it. Next story. I don't know that it was a specific sentence, but as an ESL teacher, I've had a number of refugee students from various countries. I'm not talking about immigrants. I mean people who have fled from their country because they would have been executed, eliminated otherwise. When given the chance to make speeches in class, they would open up and describe intimate details of their lives, which were both amazing and horrifying. A Uyghur boy told us about how much he missed his friends who he'd never see again. An Iranian newspaper reporter described the difficulties he faced trying to get his belongings sold there, with the government seizing everything and his life savings disappearing overnight. A Saudi girl described her hysterectomy and how she felt like she no longer had value. An Iranian concert pianist showed us photos of his hometown, knowing that he would never set foot in the place he knew as home. A sweet Bosnian girl described ducking behind cars on her way to school to avoid bullets. These moments teach me that no matter what I'm going through, there are people out there who have it worse and that we should try to be compassionate. We never know what the random person in front of you might be going through. Next story. I'm not a teacher, but another student in year 5 was sat on the bench crying. So me being me goes over to ask what's wrong. This girl had been bullied by a large group since she started at the school in year 3. Anyway, I ask her and she just falls into my arms, crying even more now, and then looks up at me and says, "Why are you here? It's not like you care about me. No one cares about time, not even my own family." I hug and tell her that I care and sat and talked all lunchtime. Turns out her parents had kicked her out and she was living on the streets for 5 days. Doesn't seem like a lot, but for a 10-year-old girl by herself, I tell my mom, and my mom decides to tell the police. Her parents are put in jail for abusing the girl, and my parents ask if she can stay with us. Until this day, years later, we are still best friends, sisters, and I love her loads. Next story. My teacher actually said this to us. She had received a call in class and answered it. She burst into tears after putting the phone down. Turns out her husband had drained their bank account dry and had run off to another state. Me and a couple of other girls hugged her till we had to leave. Hope you're doing better now, Mrs. Smith. Next story. Not a teacher, but talked to one of my friend's younger sisters. She told me I was so lucky to have loving and supportive parents. It broke my heart to hear because I know what she said is true. So many of my friends have told me about how their Asian parents compare them to other kids, call them fat, ugly, plan their life out for them, and leave no choice for their own hopes and dreams, among many other things. Next story. I had an internship at a school for bad hearing deaf kids. I was in the group with 46YO. One boy really had trouble with communication. He couldn't pronounce words right, and he can't hear without his cochlear implants, CI, but his parents often don't charge the batteries, so they often didn't work. We kept spare batteries at school so he could follow the lesson. When he first came to the school, his parents often forgot to give him his CI, and then the school had to call his parents to bring them, which could take an hour. He also had really trouble with communication in sign language. And because he didn't know a lot of words, he was really frustrated. All the other kids and their parents were learning sign language. Every month, the school organized sign language lessons for the parents. His parents never came. When the teacher asked him how he communicate with his parents, he signed not. That was so sad. The parents didn't want to learn sign language to be able to talk with him. And from the time he would get home, he wasn't able to ask anything. After that, school contacted Child Protection, and the parents had to learn sign language and use it with him. Otherwise, he would be put in a foster family. I don't know how he ended up because my internship ended. That kid must have been so lonely at home and in the world. Next story. So maybe this isn't so sad, but rather touching. I'm a paraeducator, the people who follow the special needs kids around and help them out. My goal is to become the best special ed teacher one day. But anyway, I was on a case with a kid that was very independent, so I didn't just help him. I tried my best to help the class. 6th grade beta babu. There was this one kid that rarely showed up to class, but when he did, we'd talk and I got to know him very well. He reminded me when I was young, he loved anime, especially Naruto, which is my favorite as well. So we'd always talk about it. One day while talking, I asked why he rarely came to school. Education is important. He told me his mom asks him to watch the children most of the time, so she refuses to take him to school. He has to sneak out and take the bus sometimes. I asked why can't she watch them. He told me he wasn't sure because she was home all the time. I was furious at this revelation, but couldn't really do anything about it but say, "Sorry you're going through that, bud." Later that day, he came up to me with a picture of Kurama from Naruto he drew for me. He gave it to me, then asked, "Mr. Jared, can I call you my brother?" I got all teary-eyed and told him yes, but in secret so I don't get fried LOL. He was very happy. Later on that year, they had their 6th grade trip to camp, and he wanted to go but couldn't afford it because his family was very poor. I decided to cough up the $300 to pay for him while also getting him supplies, flashlight, sleeping bag, etc. Gave this all to the principal and told him to make it anonymous because I didn't want attention for it. They gave it all to him and he was ecstatic. It was the greatest thing to see the huge smile on his face. He instantly knew it was me, so he came over and gave me a big hug and started crying. Sadly, after the camping trip, he never came back to the school and he was dropped. Miss my guy, he felt like the little brother I always wanted. Next story. For a very brief time before I decided it wasn't for me, I was taking an accelerated teaching program offered to STEM students, basically get a major in your STEM field and a minor in education. Naturally, this involved doing some teaching hours. My partner and I gave them a lab to do and let them run with it. This little kid was getting picked on for being obsessed with Minecraft. Being the nerd I am, I told all the kids I still play Minecraft and how my roommates and I were playing on our own server. They stopped and he hugged me on my last day. It was just sad seeing this kid talking about something he liked and was proud of, and these kids being so mean. Next story. I had a student that just wouldn't do his homework, ever. I took him aside and asked why he just can't do his homework like everyone else. He proceeds to tell me that his mom is an adult worker and turns tricks in his house. And not just in his house. Many times she would kick him out of his own room so she could use it to perform services. He had no place to do his work. This is just one story of working with at-risk youth. We call them at promise because we really poured into their lives to get them out of the cycle that they live in. Sad stuff. Next story. Not my story, but my mom's. She used to volunteer at my elementary school to help kids with projects. Since my school district was broke off and had around 35-40 kids per classroom. Recently, we were talking about teachers I've had when I was a kid, and she told me one of the groups were all talking about how their dads were in jail. One of my only memories from that school was in 1st grade, when a kid broke his arm and everyone was signing his cast. He told everyone, including the teacher, "My dad threw me down the stairs, but it's okay because he's back in jail now." Don't even remember the kid's name, but I hope he turned out all right being raised in that environment. Next story. Many years ago, a kindergartner asked me why I looked so sad. A close friend had passed and I was still in grief. I told him that I lost someone very close to me and I won't see them again. This little angel said, "Don't be sad, I'll never leave you." Doesn't totally fit, but sweet just the same. Next story. I didn't hear it, but last week a student of mine told me that another student of mine was going to eliminate herself because of the foster home she was in. The student that told me only told me because she and a lot of other students believed that I was the only teacher that would do something or even listen to that matter. The girl in danger was only 11. When I came up to talk to her about it after class, she broke down. She told me that they were abusive, and if she didn't want to eat what she was allergic to, she would have to sleep outside in the backyard with absolutely nothing to keep her comfortable or warm in the middle of winter, or even would have the foster parents' kids do pretty much whatever they wanted. Just last night, my lawyer is trying for me to get custody of her so she can have food and a good place to sleep every night. Eat it. Grammar, not an English teacher, LOL. Eat it 2. News update, court starts Wednesday. Eat it 3. Sorry it's late. But the 2 cases that happened on Wednesday and then today both went into my favor. I have the girl, and now all I have to do is legally make her my daughter. Next story. Not a teacher, but I coach softball to 6 to 8-year-old girls, and the one little girl told me, "I hear my dad talk bad things about me to my mom, so that's why I just don't care." And she also said, "When I grow up, I don't want to play softball. I just want to sit on the couch and watch TV." Next story. I had a 6th grade boy who was sort of troubled. He had anger issues and such, which stemmed from him getting picked on a lot by his older brother. He was being raised by his dad, a widower, because his mom had passed away when he was younger by overdose. He was having a rough day, and at lunch he had started to cry and didn't want to go outside. I started talking to him, and he had been thinking about his mom. I asked him what she was like, and he thought for a second and said, "A lot like you." Felt like I'd been punched in the soul. I wanted to just wrap him in my arms and take him home with me. Next story. I worked in an area with horrible gang violence. A 1st grade student was describing his family to me and said, "My daddy got shot and died." Another student sitting across from him looked relieved that he said this and confided in him by saying, "My daddy died from getting shot too." Next story. Reading some of the things in this thread that teachers have done for their students that have been struggling has restored my faith in good teachers and in my study to be a teacher. If I can be 25 as good as some of you, I know I'll have made a difference. Next story. I was substituting a 6th grade class the Thursday before leaving on spring break. The kids are super excited because it was minimum day, vacation was about to start, and they finished their state testing the day before. I was a little lost with where some things were because the classroom was emptied for testing, so no materials or work on the boards. I had a student, Iggy, come up to me and ask if I needed help looking for things. Such a kind and helpful boy. He helped with passing out papers and calming the class down. Everything you could ask for and need. The kids are starting to ask me, can I call my mom, Dad? I get curious and realize it's their lunch in the lawn day parents come and eat lunch with their kids, essentially. Iggy comes back to class really upset, tears down his face and his hood over his head. I asked him what was wrong, and he told me, my mom promised me she was going to come. She knows I miss her. She promised me. Why didn't she come? I haven't seen her in so long. Why didn't she show up? This boy was bawling his eyes out. My heart hurt, and I gave my mom a hug when I got home. Next story. I was teaching a slam poetry lesson in an 8th grade classroom. Anyone who wanted to was able to get up and read their slam poem in front of the class. A very quiet boy got up to read his, which I was already surprised he wanted to do, as he was normally very reserved. The one rule of this lesson was that everyone got claps at the end of their poem. His poem was about his ex-stepfather punching his pregnant mother in the stomach and eliminate his baby brother. It was the saddest shoot I have ever heard, and his fellow students giving him his claps at the end made tears fall from my eyes. I called his dad, who he was then living with, to tell him how well his son was doing in class, and the dad sounded shocked. The kid came in the next day so happy, telling me how his dad had given him his Game Boy back and put his door back on the hinges because of my call. I didn't last long at that school for a lot of reasons, but he'll never forget those kids. Next story. I taught up north for a while. A kid came into class and promptly went to sleep on the floor. Turns out he didn't sleep at all during the winter nights, as his house had no insulation, so he spent each night running around to keep warm. The floors in the school were heated, and basic needs come before education. Next story. A 4th grade boy whose father was in immigration jail, he was eventually deported, was carrying around a letter from his dad all day, constantly rereading it with a really hard-to-read expression. Toward the end of the day, the boy showed me the letter. It was affectionate and playful and was addressed to El Gordo. There was a pencil drawing of their family at the bottom. The boy, labeled Fatty, was drawn to look cartoonishly fat. After I read it, the boy asked me the question that I then realized had been on his mind all day. Is this mean? Next story. Called a family to remind them that we had a dinner coming up where all the kids bring their parents in and we all eat together. The kid answers and asks for Octona's dad. The kids replied in the most monotone voice, "Oh, he died." I work with inner city youth, and this kid's dad was one of the good ones. The dad picked him up every day, got him tutoring, had great rapport with both paid staff and volunteers. Then one day he was just gone because of an accident. Sucks, man. This kid is in 4th grade and lost a great dad. Next story. I used to run summer camps for kids. We were going between some different areas at a local park, and this one kid went from running to jogging to walking and then just sat down on the ground and started crying. I had one of my coaches take the other kids, and this kid unloaded on me about his parents fighting, his dad's drinking, how he had no friends at school, everything. He seemed fine 5 minutes before, and then right there in the middle of the playground, the weight of the world crashed on his tiny shoulders, and he couldn't take it. Next story. Not really what you asked, but more of a sad thing a teacher said about a student. One of my better friends a few months ago in school had just come out of a psych ward for a tempting tragic end. So he was in school not focusing as much on the actual academics. A teacher noticed this and proceeded to yell, "Why don't you ever act like someone successful instead of the rest of your family? You're going to end up dead or dirt poor and on welfare like the rest of your family," and then smacked him on the arm a few times. She hasn't been fired or gotten in trouble at all, despite the school knowing about what happened. Instead, she requested my friend get switched out of her class and take the whole course online. Quite a shoot teacher emo. Next story. Am not a teacher, but I'm a youth worker, so I work with young people every day. One of the saddest things I witnessed was a kid opening his packed lunch bag to find nothing in it and his friends noticing. They shared their food with him, and the next day we provided emergency lunches to kids who needed them. We've seen kids appear with dry bread for their lunch or one biscuit to do them until they go home. We even had a parent phone in tears asking us to lend her some bread because she didn't have the means to send her kid with lunch. Now we run programs during the school holidays where kids can get breakfast and lunch and have a space for them to unashamedly be themselves. Food poverty is right on our doorstep, and sometimes we don't even realize it. Next story. Not a teacher, but my student job is to help elementary school children from difficult neighborhoods with their homeworks. I'm pretty sure one of them is beaten by her dad. My boss told me that our equivalent of CPS knows. Once she told me that her little sister has lost her beanie and she didn't know if she should replace it with hers. They wear matching ones and take the blame. Nobody should ask themselves those types of questions, especially at 9. Next story. I was teaching a bunch of 10-year-olds, and since I was their new teacher, they got an assignment from me to write a letter about themselves, like one of those get-to-know each other type of things. And one of the questions in the assignment was, tell me what makes you sad. So this kid raises his hand, and in front of the whole class he said, is it okay if I write that I am sad when my mom does substances? I mean, it was clear that this was a normal situation for him, that he could ask it in front of a teacher and 25 other kids. Next story. That she didn't want to live anymore. She told a friend this while walking across the street and stopped in the middle of the road. She is a bubbly, beautiful, and wonderful person who is kind to everyone, and I couldn't see any signs at all of her needing help. I bought her prom ticket for this weekend earlier, but when she made that claim, we had to call paramedics to take her to the local children's hospital. She missed her senior prom, but I hope she is getting the proper help that she needs. Next story. Obligatory, not a teacher, but this is about the time another student made a teacher cry. Other student in high school calculus class. Why do we have to learn all this in the first place? We've learned the basics for math we'll actually use in life. When are we going to use something this abstract? Guy sitting next to him. Because if we don't, our parents will complain that we're not learning math and vote to cut the school's funding. The teacher, I wish I could say you were wrong. I got back from lunch early later that day and walked past the room to hear the teacher sobbing. Maybe it was something unrelated, but answer, my wife was a teacher. The amount of shoots she went through in a day could be heartbreaking. The funding things is especially stressful. From what I understood, if the students' test scores didn't meet certain requirements, not only could the funding be affected, but the teacher could lose their job. My wife was already at an underfunded school. She had large class sizes, not enough books to go around, next to no classroom supplies and no technology for the classroom. I remember me and my coworkers piling up money to pay for supplies for her classroom. So basically, she had to try to help these kids improve without having the tools to do it. Throw in a school district that locked down the curriculum, meaning she couldn't adapt it to her classroom on top of all that. Yeah, she cried a lot. Still helped her students improve their test scores by about 20, though. Teachers are special, and we, as a society, don't give them the tools they need or the respect they deserve. Next story. I just finished student teaching. Kids wrote a story about their friends. One student, who I must admit is a little odd, probably has autism but not diagnosed per mom being in denial. Anyway, he wrote about how he has no friends except Dave's, who is so nice, and he is the only person who he would invite to his birthday. It was so sad. Daly is super nice, and I would invite him to my birthday too. Another student refused to eat lunch because she had no money and no food to pack lunch. I told her to eat anyway. She said no because mom and dad make her pay the negative amount. These are third graders. Next story. Not a teacher, but I used to have very severe depression, yet I volunteered to do public speaking. English is secondary language in our school, so no one wanted to do a speech on stage in English except me and a few others, willingly. So I was an idiot and decided to do a speech about depression. I know it was stupid of me. I didn't realize how fragile I was back then. I just wanted to make everyone see how bad it is and spread awareness. I didn't realize how personal it is because I'm a passionate person. Everything I do is wholehearted and personal. Safe to say, when people lost interest and I swore I heard giggles or jokes, I snapped. I literally screamed at everyone on stage in tears how depression is very serious and they shouldn't take it lightly because of how many people die by it, how it affects everyone and someone close to them might have it, and how they could be subjected to tragic end because people don't want to pay attention and know about it. It was dead silent for a solid 5 to 10 seconds as I sobbed on stage. My teacher had to awkwardly and slowly take me from stage. I had caused so much worry from everyone, students and teachers alike, so much so that the teachers started asking me if I was okay. I laughed it off because it was an idiot mistake, but yeah, I didn't miss those shocked and sad looks from everyone. Next story. It happened today. Got a phone call front office, and I was told a student black was going home early. Then I tell her, hey, you are going home early. She says, yay, my dad is here. Then a black student says, you have a dad? He was joking, but I heard that from them that a lot. It just made me sad.